The village itself consisted of 3 picturesque but dilapidated cottages, a forge, and a combined post office and sweet shop. The nearest town was Exhampton, 6 miles away, a steady descent which necessitated the sign, "Motorists, engage your lowest gear," so familiar on the Dartmoor roads. Captain Trevelyan, as has been said, was a man of substance. In spite of this, or perhaps because of it, he was a man who was inordinately fond of money. At the end of October, a house agent in Exhampton wrote to him asking if he would consider letting Sittaford House. A tenant had made inquiries concerning it, wishing to rent it for the winter. Captain Trevelyan's first impulse was to refuse. His second, to demand further information. The tenant in question proved to be a Mrs. Willett, a widow with 1 daughter. She had recently arrived from South Africa and wanted a house on Dartmoor for the winter. "Damn it all, the woman must be mad," said Captain Trevelyan. "Eh, Burnaby? Don't you think so?" Burnaby did think so, and said so as forcibly as his friend had done. "Well, anyway, you don't want to let it," he said. "Let the fool woman go somewhere else if she wants to freeze. Coming from South Africa, too." But at this point, Captain Trevelyan's money complex asserted itself. Not once in 100 times would you get a chance of letting your house in midwinter. He demanded what rent the tenant was willing to pay. An offer of 12 guineas a week clinched matters. Captain Trevelyan went into Exhampton, rented a small house on the outskirts at 2 guineas a week, and handed over Sittaford House to Mrs. Willett, half the rent to be paid in advance. "A fool and her money are soon parted," he growled. But Burnaby was thinking this afternoon, as he scanned Mrs. Willett covertly, that she did not look like a fool. She was a tall woman, with a rather silly manner, but her physiognomy was shrewd rather than foolish. She was inclined to overdress, had a distinct colonial accent, and seemed perfectly content with the transaction. She was clearly very well off, and that, as Burnaby had reflected more than once, really made the whole affair more odd. She was not the kind of woman one would credit with a passion for solitude. As a neighbour, she had proved almost embarrassingly friendly. Invitations to Sittaford House were rained on everybody. Captain Trevelyan was constantly urged to treat the house as though we hadn't rented it. Trevelyan, however, was not fond of women. Report went that he had been jilted in his youth. He persistently refused all invitations. 2 months had passed since the installation of the Willets, and the first wonder at their arrival had passed away. Burnaby, naturally a silent man, continued to study his hostess, oblivious to any need for small talk. Liked to make herself out a fool, but wasn't really. So he summed up the situation. His glance shifted to Violet Willett. Pretty girl. Scraggy, of course. They all were nowadays. What was the good of a woman if she didn't look like a woman? Papers said curves were coming back. About time, too. He roused himself to the necessity of conversation. "We were afraid at first that you wouldn't be able to come," said Mrs. Willett. "You said so, you remember. We were so pleased when you said that after all you would." "Friday," said Major Burnaby, with an air of being explicit. Mrs. Willett looked puzzled. "Friday?" "Every Friday go to Trevelyan's. Tuesday he comes to me. Both of us done it for years." "Oh, I see. Of course, living so near, kind of habit." "But do you still keep it up? I mean, now that he's living in Exhampton?" "Pity to break a habit," said Major Burnaby. "We'd both of us miss those evenings." "You go in for competitions, don't you?" asked Violet. "Acrostics and crosswords and all those things." Burnaby nodded. "I do crosswords, Trevelyan does acrostics. We each stick to our own line of country. I won 3 books last month in a crossword competition," he volunteered. "Oh, really? How nice. Were they interesting books?" "I don't know. I haven't read them. Looked pretty hopeless." "It's the winning of them that matters, isn't it?" said Mrs. Willett vaguely. "How do you get to Exhampton?" asked Violet. "You haven't got a car?"
"Walk."
"What? Not really. 6 miles?
"Good exercise. What's 12 miles? Keeps a man fit. Great thing to be fit."
"Fancy, 12 miles. But both you and Captain Trevelyan were great athletes, weren't you?"
We used to go to Switzerland together.